All right guys, so we're back in Mississippi. As you know, we got a few things to take care of on the cars. First, I'm going to be swapping the transmission back out on the 240. I'm going to be using a KA trans, so I have to swap the SR bell housing. But first, I'm going to wash them off before I take them in the shop. Alright guys, so I got them cleaned up pretty good. It's raining on me a little bit out here. I'm going to just clean the bell housing portion of that one since I'll be using that. And the tail housing of this one. So once we swap them over, we'll have a nice clean one. But I'm going to move them over into the shop and then we'll get started. So let's do it. So first thing that we're going to do is go ahead and open the cases. I'm going to start by taking the front plate off here in the bell housing, if I can get the right extension. So this transmission here actually is a KA trans 2. So I've done this before with this bell housing. Even though it doesn't look like I know what I'm doing. Factory, this plate has a paper gasket, but I actually have a have it glued on with Honda Bond, so it's much easier to remove the first time, but apparently it's pretty difficult the second time. There we go. Got some metal pieces in there from whatever happened. Make sure you keep up with that thrust washer. Curious to see what the rest of this thing looks like once I get inside of it. See if I can't stand it up, get these bolts out. Make things a little easier. Apparently it's still got a little fluid left in it. Alright, so it's got this little clip in here you got to spread apart. I use a pick, kind of help me guide it off of that race. There we go. Pick's pretty handy for getting that guy off. I'll set it aside. Now that we have that loose, we should be able to knock it loose from the plate here. Probably going to be pretty difficult because I use Honda Bond when I installed it. And actually what I'm going to do is install one of these bolts and use it to separate the case. Put it in there a few threads. Well, I'm not going to install the bolt because that's not working. There we go. A couple little bumps to get it loose. Some pretty good sized pieces of metal in there. I'm not really sure what gear they're from. They all appear to have their teeth on this side. This one obviously is damaged pretty bad. Oh, here we go. Down here on the bottom, you can see all the teeth are sheared there. This transmission is actually pretty clean inside, surprisingly, but I did clean it pretty good whenever we put the bell housing on it the first time, so probably do the same to the new one once I get the front off of it. A lot of people will leave these rear housings on and not re-glue this plate, and I've done that before and it actually started leaking. So I found it's best to go ahead and remove the rear housing too while you're here and reseal both the front of this plate and the back side of it. That way you don't have any issues. Now that I've got this off, I'm going to clean this one out, and then we'll get the other transmission over here and start taking it apart. Alright, this one looks pretty gross inside. Same thing here. We're going to move that thrust washer and then try to get this snap ring out of here, or spring clip, whatever you want to call it. That one came off a little easier. Alright, same thing here. Gonna take these bell housing bolts out. Should be able to open it on up. Alright, just like the other one, I'm going to tap the bell housing loose from this one. Actually, I think I'm going to take the tail housing off first. Alright, now since I'm going to be removing the rear housing on this one, I'm going to go ahead and knock these roll pins out so I can remove this little shift selector piece. These are just the return springs for the shift selector. All right, so now that we've got that loose, I'm gonna stand it up on its end. All right, gonna take a 2x4 here just to keep it off of its snout. Put a rag down to stop this fluid that's coming out of it. Yep. Just a little lockout piece. It's got an O-ring around it. Alright. After you get the tail housing off, make sure you get those roll pins out that we took out of this little selector piece. You can see here, this thing's pretty gross. Doesn't really want to focus. There we go. As you can see here, this one's pretty gross, so I'm gonna do some cleaning in here with brake parts cleaner. Probably clean the gears off here too. A little residue on the shaft there. Probably wash out the whole thing while we got it out. Like for it to be nice and clean, like this one here, before we put it back together. All right, for now we're gonna set this housing to the side and take the bell housing off of this guy. Won't be using this bell housing, so I'm just going to set it out of the way for now. Now that I have the transmission out of the housings, I'm going to take it outside, rinse it out real good with brake clean to get this residue out of it. Do the same with the cases, and then we'll come back in here and start putting it back together. We have it all clean. I'm going to get the gasket maker and prepare the gasket surface here on the bell housing so we can start putting it back together. All right, now I'm going to clean and prep the tail shaft housing, get the gasket maker on it, ready to go back together. Now we got to make sure to remember as we're putting the tail shaft housing back on, for one, not to mess up the gasket maker on the way on or the way in. And for 2, we have to make sure we put the little shift selector piece back onto the shaft before the housing slides all the way down. Now we're going to go ahead and put the bolts back in the housing. Now that I have the housing back together, I'm going to go ahead and lay this thing down, get it positioned where I can reinstall the roll pins and the front cover, front plate. I'm gonna put the front cover on. Got to make sure I'm gonna keep up with that thrust washer, put it back in its place. And now the snap ring. All right guys, got the housing swapped out. Next time we're going to be swapping it out, putting it in the car. So that's it for this video. See you next time.